So the Craftworld Eldar seem to have found a monstrously powerful new special rule. This one seems to put you in the position of a Farseer, casting your runes and turning your dice rolls into sixes. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, where today we're talking about yet more Craftworld Eldar leaks, the codex that seems determined to reveal itself to us before we've even had Tau, Genestealer Cult or Custodes. Today we have what appears to be another special rule from the playtester version of the codex, one that seems to have already made its way around the internet on various Discord servers and Reddit threads. The mechanic is called Strands of Fate, and it appears to be the new Eldar army-wide special rule, and to be honest it looks like a ridiculously powerful one, and one that you could use in several different ways. So from the leaked images that have been shared, it appears that this is going to be the Eldar army-wide special rule if you don't take any allies. It's going to be interesting to see exactly what that means. Of course that'll mean no Drukhari in the army, but I'd be interested to see exactly how Harlequins fit into this, as they don't seem to be listed in the exclusions, and all the rumours point to them being rolled into the Eldar Craftworld Codex. Apparently every model in the army must have the Atayani keyword, that's the one for the Craftworld Eldar mainly. They all have to be from the same Craftworld as well, so no mixing too like Ulthwé and Bealtan. That certainly seems to be one of the favoured ways of playing Eldar recently, with different custom Craftworlds making use of their best attributes for ranged or melee units. That's kind of a fairly punishing restriction. I think the only other army-wide rule where you have to be from the same Sulk faction is the Necron command protocols, and they're really quite restrictive indeed. Interestingly, the one exception it does make is that it excludes Anwraith units, which, giving it a Google, appears to be the Eldar word for Corsairs, the Eldar pirates and raiders that were also rumoured to be in this book. Seems like the Eldar Corsairs will be getting representation in some way, perhaps most likely a new Kill Team style kit. In any case, if you do take basically a fairly normal looking Craftworld army, at the start of each battle round you get to make what is called a Strands of Fate roll. No matter what size of the battle, you roll 6d6, and then depending on the size of the battle, you get to keep a certain number of them. You get to pick 2 of your rolls in Combat Patrol, 3 in Incursion, 4 in Strike Force, or 5 in Onslaught. Then the dice act as a little pool that you can dip into, and you basically get to substitute those dice into certain dice rolls in-game in a similar sort of way to the Sisters of Battle Miracle dice. You have to do it for a roll you're about to make, so you can't say roll a 1 and then decide I want to improve that roll. You need to do it prior. You can only have 1d6 per roll, and that d6 becomes a 6. The rolls that you can choose to substitute are based on this table, so once you've rolled those initial 6d6, if they were all 6s for example, you'd only be able to use those for saving throws. Any 1s that you could substitute for advanced rolls, any 2s for charge rolls, any 3s for psychic tests, any 4s for hit rolls, any 5 for wound rolls, and any 6s for saves. When you're rolling 6d6 at that table, you've got a pretty decent chance of getting any one result that you want, but it's not guaranteed. I think there's going to be some skill involved in choosing which ones to pick when you've got some similar value rolls in your hand, but also the way that you're going to get more of some rolls in certain turns than others is going to make you play a little bit differently with these. You can't just 100% plan to use them all on charges, as if you get unlucky you might not roll any 2s whatsoever. Overall, in your standard Strike Force game though, a Craftworld's player is going to be able to get essentially 4 dice that are going to be automatic 6s for free. It just depends on whether or not they can find something meaningful enough to make them work. Overall, I must admit I do really quite like the mechanic. It just feels really fluffy indeed, putting yourself in the mind of a manipulative Farseer and guiding the Eldar army to victory at certain moments. Maybe a tiny bit more bookkeeping than the Sisters of Battle Miracle dice, but still seems fairly intuitive and obvious to me. So let's talk about some potential uses for the Strands of Fate 6s then. First up we have advanced rolls. I have a feeling that in general they're going to be quite low value ones. It just depends on whether or not there's any units in the Craftworld Codex that can advance and charge. I'm sure all the Harlequins will be able to, but it remains to be seen whether or not we'll be able to use this mechanic on them. But if there is anything that has that ability, being able to automatically punch in a 6 is going to be great. It's really going to be a reliable increase to their threat range. Even if you are forced into using advances though, it's not exactly the worst thing to get an automatic 6. Could easily help stretch you out to a key objective if it's going to be close. That could be actually one of the ones that you need the most in the late game, when it's more about getting units to objectives and reaching far-flung enemies than it is about dealing masses of damage. Next up, as with the Sisters of Battle, charge rolls are perhaps going to be one of the strongest I think. though it does appear that from the way that the rule is written, you're not just going to be able to punch in an automatic charge at 9 inches, as it does seem that you can only substitute one of the 2 dice in the charge roll for a 6. It means that if you've got a unit jumping out of deep strike, that's going to be a 2/3 chance to get in, and then you could command reroll the roll, but you would have to command reroll both dice, not just the one that isn't a 6. Still though, a 2/3 charge chance really isn't too bad odds comparatively, and for more normal units jumping about the board, it gives you a really decent chance of making slightly longer charges if you need it, and basically gives you an auto charge at 7 inches. Definitely seems like it could be one of the most powerful rules. The difference between making a charge or failing it is going to be a massive amount of damage to the opponent. Next up we have psychic tests, always an important one for the Eldar, and punching in at 6 means that you can make 1 power really reliable to cast, and also quite hard to deny as well if that's going to be a factor. Eldar seers do tend to cast fairly reliably anyway. Maybe it could be quite useful for the warlocks, which tend to be a little bit less so. Could be a nice insurance against surprisingly failing jinx or protect or something. Again, with advances, I do feel that hit rolls might be one of the weaker ones. Typically when you're just doing normal damage, hit rolls are going to be weaker than wound rolls. As for the wound roll, you know that the attacker's hit already, but for the hit roll you don't know that it's going to wound. It means that if you're just looking for raw damage output, you're typically going to be better on the wound roll. But perhaps the one exception to this might be on Overwatch, if your opponent is going to charge something meaningful. Say locking in a 6 with something like a Wraith Knight Heavy Wraith Cannon could be really nice, particularly now we've seen their damage is damage 6 plus D3. Definitely seems like it could be a surprise move that your opponent doesn't see coming. I can't see anything written here that says that you can't do it in Overwatch. Number 5 is the wound roll. As I said, probably better than the hit roll if you're just looking for raw shooting damage. In particular, it's going to be really helpful anytime that you happen to be wounding on 4s or 5s, and you want to guarantee the impact of a really hard-hitting high damage weapon. Maybe something like a Bright Lance wounding a Toughness 8 vehicle, where it's normally going to be 50-50. Reliable damage certainly rarely hurts, but it does seem that this is one of the ways that the Eldar mechanic does fall down a little bit compared with the Miracle Dice. For the Sisters of Battle, they have the option of punching in a damage result of a 6, and arguably that could be a lot more meaningful than a high wound roll. For anything that might get mortal wounds on 6s though, this could be really good. As we've seen, the Heavy Wraith Cannons appear to get D3 mortal wounds on a 6, so it could be a way to guarantee some mortal wounds on the target, as well as the damage that the weapon might have. When you substitute the 6 into the roll, it does count as an unmodified 6 apparently. Finally, last but by no means least, is the save roll, where again I think in the right circumstances an automatic 6 could be a really meaningful change to the game. If you've got something with just regular armour but without an invul save, occasionally you might find yourself saving on a 6, so you could make a save that would have very low odds normally. But I think in general this could just combine really well with anything that does have a 5+ invul save. Say you've got something like a Drakari Dark Lance hitting and wounding a Wraith Knight with that 5+ invul save that we've now seen it has. Being able to auto-pass that save on a 6 could be really quite nice, guaranteeing that you turn a really powerful shot into something that isn't going to trouble you. Super powerful anytime your opponent wouldn't have anything else to shoot at the same unit, and you know that that roll is going to guarantee that they're going to be safe to act next turn. So overall this ability looks very strong and scary indeed. I guess time will tell just how powerful this is. It's certainly encouraging for the Craftworlds though. I certainly wouldn't be too surprised to see them regain a top spot in the meta. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, or I'll certainly keep on talking about the Eldar Craftworld leaks that we're getting, and any other news of Games Workshop's rules and releases. Finally, if you have been enjoying these videos a lot, I would just like to briefly mention the Auspex Tactics Patreon page, which you can find down in the video description below. The Patreon is what incentivizes me to keep on making these videos, even when it sometimes means that I stay up to 4:45 in the morning, which I fully admit I might regret tomorrow. In any case, feel free to check it out if you would like to help support more videos like this being made. I do try and give channel patrons a few rewards, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with the chance to win some really big model kits each month. This month is that Space Marine Shieldbreaker Strike Force box. If any of that's of interest to you, or you'd just like to help out, the link is down in the video description. In any case, an absolutely enormous thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.